All right. We're good.
Okay, let's go
We're
for
on,
it.
man.
Yeah.
We're official. All right, man. So I got Rich Penrose. I'm saying that right?
Yeah.
Last name.
Yeah.
All these years knowing you, I was like, I gotta make sure I get it right, man.
Yeah.
So, owner of Supplement Superstore.
Yep.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your background. I'm interested today, man, to learn more about the industry, but more about your process into the industry, into fitness, into health, and
Yeah, you know what? It's one of those things like you kind of fall into. You know, it's like I think I was telling you while you were setting up. It's like, oh, I went to school for audio engineering. It's just like, okay, how did you end up in supplements? You know, completely different ends of the spectrum at the end of the day. Literally, I actually, you know, we were talking about Newfoundland and sort of that connection before we started. And well, obviously growing up in England, living in England, you know, a lot of, at the end of sort of the equivalent of high school at that time, everybody kind of moves away. I had a Newfoundland connection with my parents having that rental property there. So kind of I was like, you know what, it's a good place to go. I wanted to do engineering at the time, and they had a really good engineering program at Memorial University in Newfoundland. So that was the move. That was the move across the Atlantic at that point to it's pretty much the first place you come to, St. John's, Newfoundland, when you come across the Atlantic. So I spent obviously 3 years there, which was a lot of fun.
at this point, were you solo there, or
I was 100%. It was just me. You know, as I mentioned, like everybody kind of goes away to university. I notice here it's a little bit more. You know, everyone goes to more of a local university. Yeah, exactly. You know. Obviously I know a lot of people who have gone down to the States in that regards as well. We're still sort of on the same continent, but generally, you know, in England, people go everywhere. So it's a very different sort of culture, and it's like, okay, you know, when you finish high school equivalent, everybody kind of moves away. Like my sister done it, my brother done it, like they've all.
Where did they go?
So my sister actually, one sister went to Canterbury, which is just outside London. I had another sister. She went more sort of the London route, and then my brother was actually a professional squash player, so a professional athlete. So at that point, even before he turned 18, he was traveling the world, you know, going to different tournaments. So we were all kind of scattered over, and like even now, you know, I live obviously here in Canada. My brother lives down in the US. Another sister of mine literally moved to Australia 2 weeks ago.
Jesus.
So yeah, we're kind of we're literally all over the place.
Travelers.
Yeah. So there's 5 of us in all, and you know, 3 of us live in different countries, and the other 2 live in different places in the UK. So it's, you know, we're not sort of, it's definitely not sort of rooted to where you grew up. And you know, even my parents now, we were talking about it. They live in Newfoundland, so it's kind of like they moved there, I moved to Ontario, so we kind of always
trying to get away from each other.
Yeah.
Where are you moving? Canada. Okay, I'm going to Australia.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going somewhere else. So I guess when I moved over there, it was. You know, it's interesting, like, you know, if you talk about sort of schooling in general in England, they make you make that decision on what you want to do in university very young. You know, sort of 13 years of age, you're sort of having to decide
How do you know?
route. Well, that's the thing, like, at that
Engineer,
age...
I guess.
Yeah, well, at that age, I was very creative. Like, you know, I like doing things with my hands in terms of building things. So, okay, well, that seems like a logical fit. So you think, you know, and at that point you have to kind of choose a few subjects that you're kind of thinking about or, you know, you're good at. So you have to do maths, you have to do English, you have to choose a humanity. So I thought geography would be a good one over like maybe history or classical civilization or something. It doesn't really pertain to engineering too much. So the influence was definitely on finding that career from a relatively early age. You sit that set of exams at 15, and then from there, effectively, out of all of those subjects that you've chosen, you've got to choose 4, sometimes 3, to specialize in. And then generally so you've got 2 more years of school at that point, and then in the last year, you specialize in 3. So me thinking about being an engineer, I'm like, okay, well, I've got to do maths, I've got to do physics, I've got to do design technology, and I did geography, and then I dropped geography for the final year. So I'm only doing 3 subjects. So you're very specific. So if you're like, actually, you know what, I want to do business. And it's like, well, you got maths and physics and design technology. It's like, well, how are we going to get you into a university doing business? So, you know, those kids would have done economics and business studies and, you know, maybe maths or something like that. They would have done those subjects. So to choose at 13 and then to basically have it down pat in terms of what you want to do at university at 16, I think is a little bit too young.
People change jobs now they're 30, they don't know what the hell they want to do, right?
Yeah, so. I mean, even the headmaster of my school growing up, that high school time, he changed careers. He was doing one thing, and then he was like, "Oh, I want to be a school headmaster." And he was in his late 20s at that time, so kind of worked his way into the position. So it really, nobody knows what they want to do, right? So I thought, yeah, let's do the university. Let's go to engineering. You get there, and it's like, well, actually, it's not what I thought it was going to be. You have this thing kind of drawn up in your mind, and you think, oh, I'm going to be building stuff. I'm going to be doing, computer-aided design and designing things and building things. And it's like, no, actually, we're going to sit in a classroom and talk about springs for an hour. It's like, okay, this is not really what I had in mind. But so I kind of rolled with it for the first year, and I didn't really sort of get into it. I've never been a big fan of school anyway.
Or any subjects like kind of appealing, or you're like,
I mean, I enjoyed the workshop classes because they were more hands-on. It's like, okay, well, we're going in the workshop for 2 hours and we're going to create something, and we're going to learn how to use this machine. Sure. That was more me. I'm more of a hands-on learner, and sitting in some of those early courses, you're sitting in there with 250 students. It's like the influence is on you to learn at that point. Like somebody is standing at the front and they're talking about the subject, but you've got to go away and learn all the material yourself at the end of the day, because you've got a very, very limited amount of time with that course teacher, if any at all, throughout the term. So it wasn't, school wasn't really for me. I thought, when I was coming through the high school system, you're kind of almost forced to go into that university education, especially in the UK now. I'm not sure if it's the same here in Canada, but so you kind of, forced to go down that route. And it's like, oh yeah, this is what you need to do. And it wasn't really for me, to be honest. Like looking back at it now, at the time I thought, okay, well, I got to do it. So, I went to university, I sort of did that. Didn't really sort of get on with the whole school atmosphere. It was starting to become, pretty apparent at that point. So I moved to Ontario actually, and there was this audio engineering course that I was looking at in Mississauga. So during the time that I was living in Newfoundland, my parents actually moved to Oakville. So my dad had sold his business in the UK. He wanted to move over and, sort of almost retire here with my mum. So they lived in Oakville. And then this course came up in Mississauga. It was like a 2 years, meant to be very hands-on kind of course. So okay, well, let's go and do that. And that would be something that I quite like to do. I've always had an interest in music, and, now it's turned into more of a hobby than a sort of a career choice, but I still enjoyed it a lot. So I kind of moved over, and as I was doing this course, actually, sorry, backtrack a little bit. When I first moved to Ontario, I got a summer job. At that point, I just become a permanent resident in Canada, so I was able to work for the first time in Canada. So got a bit of a summer job, get some funds together. I need a vehicle, so it was like So the guy that I was working with, and it was just me and him, we were doing yard work at a...
classic,
yeah, exactly, like a student summer job, absolutely. It ticks all the boxes. It's outside, it's in the summer, So he was actually into fitness. Yeah. And so...
At this point, sorry, were you at all, were you working out at this point?
No, not at all. Like, it was actually, well, a little bit. So when I first moved over, I had a lot of friends in Newfoundland. I moved over to Ontario, I didn't know anybody. Yeah. So this was really the only guy that I knew, because, I was pretty fresh here, and obviously I hadn't grown up here or anything, so I didn't really know anybody. And there was the YMCA just up the road from where I was living with my parents. And I thought, I'd never really been in shape in my life. Like, I'd never been in the gym. I was never very good at sports growing up. There was a couple of sports that I enjoyed, but I wasn't particularly great at it, So I was like, you know what? I've got nothing else to do. Like, literally, I'm going to work, and I got nothing else that I got to do. This was before I was starting my new course, so I didn't have anything that I could kind of sink my teeth into in the schooling or in sort of the audio side of things yet. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to get in shape. Like, I've never done it before. I've never sort of learned about my body before. I'd never gone to the gym and sort of, felt comfortable there or anything like that. And, bear in mind where I went to school, at high school, there wasn't, the sort of fitness culture in England really isn't as big as it is here. So I got a gym membership. And, when you sign up, you get like the free sort of personal training session, because they want to sell you some personal training. So I went and did the free personal training thing, and he put me through my paces a little bit, and I was just like, it was pretty clear very early on that I was very unfit. It was like really my first time properly working out in a gym, and it was like, wow. It was pretty eye-opening for me at that point, and but it was really interesting, and I was like, okay, well, the next day I woke up really sore, and it was kind of interesting to see that I felt something from something I did, whereas before if I'd made something, it was like, okay, well, I've got the finished product, but it was like
something tangible, I
yeah,
guess,
exactly. Like it actually was. It was like, okay, well, I don't see any difference. Like, I didn't go and do bicep curls and suddenly, absolutely, yeah. But they're hurting. So something's happening there. There's sort of like a, physiological change that's going on in the body. So that kind of intrigued me at that point. So that summer, and I was working out, 3-4 days a week. I started doing some research on training in general and weightlifting, bodybuilding, powerlifting, all that kind of stuff. And, just sort of trying out different things, having fun with it at the end of the day, which is what I really enjoyed about it. And obviously since I was working out and the guy that I was working with was working out, obviously the natural, next step was to talk about supplements. So me and him were working all day together, and we'd sort of...
What kind of steroids you
Yeah, no. Like, obviously we were young at that time, and to be honest, like, it was just like, oh, well, there's a pre-workout and a protein.
Yeah,
it's like, what's the difference between this? It was like, this is like, whoa. So it was literally like that. It was very new, and it was very basic, and, I had a little bit of knowledge on the subject, and so, I bought my first protein, sort of looking at that, and then it was like the next thing was the pre-workout. It was like that was the game changer for me at that point. You take a pre-workout and you take it for the first time, and like that energy rush, and the pump is real, and the workouts become longer, and you're more focused. And it was like, wow, this is something that you can feel. This is something where you take the protein after you work out, you just kind of got to trust that it's working. Whereas with the pre-workout, you're taking the beta alanine, you feel that tingling on your skin, you feel, the energy rush. So it was...
you see the pump, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I haven't seen that kind of blood flow before, right?
Absolutely. You feel like your arms are about to explode through your skin, and it's like, it's a different kind of feeling. So that was very interesting, but my knowledge was still very, very basic at that time. This was at the time of like the old Jack 3D. That was when that one was really starting to come on.
That had some like illegal shit in it.
The 1-3 dyno.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was an interesting. That was, and it was.
Well, the States is much more lenient, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What they put in it.
It was available in Canada for a short time.
So they're like, okay, that thing shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Like, it's one of those sort of reactionary things. It's like they put it in, and it's like, oh well, maybe somebody's going to go along and study that, and then the study comes out. It's like, oh, actually, we should take it out now.
What was wrong with it? What was like the?
So it's one of those sort of stimulants, like, we're allowed to sell ephedrine in Canada. It's like a nasal decongestion. It's like very similar to that in terms of the actual chemical makeup of it. You can it's a different sort of chain of the same thing. So it acted in a very similar way, and it's just like, well, as you know, ephedrine in Canada is very controlled. It's 50 tablets per container, 8 milligrams per tablet. So it's very, very strict on the way that it's sold.
Gotcha.
Whereas this was sort of more open to abuse.
Yeah.
In that respect. So there was no sort of set dosages or anything like that. So it was a little bit, it could be, and this is the thing, it wasn't being left up to the user, it was being left up to the companies who were putting them in. So and they were making them stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. Yeah, to get more people sort of almost hooked on it. And, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a bit, but just in terms of like the, how ethically that works, and so supplements, like, leaving it up to somebody else to tell you about the dosages versus educating themselves. Yeah. So that was kind of an interesting time to sort of come into the industry and see all this, and it was talk of that being banned, and then this was coming in and things like that. It was a very sort of transitional time, I would say, in the business. Looking back on it now, I know at the time I wasn't really aware of it, but because, I was sort of on the outskirts of it, sort of coming in at that time, it was very, interesting to see. And it was a very interesting time to come in. I think anybody, if I'd have come into the industry later on, it would have been a very sort of different outlook that I might have had on the whole industry in general. So I've kind of got that old school mentality in terms of how I look at things, which has served me well, to be honest, like over the last few years in that regard. So the that summer was kind of like a very neat time for me. So I was really getting into fitness. I was starting to see some results from that. Muscle gain, fat loss. It was all pretty exciting, and I was starting to dabble in the supplements. Like I was thinking about picking up a creatine, like or doing my research on that, really trying to figure out what all this stuff was about, because there's so many different things.
You're looking for the advantage, like a clean, natural advantage. Like, hey, I want more of a stimulation. I want to feel just more like focused and energized going inward. How can I capitalize efficiently on my workout? Right? How do I repair my muscles? How do I grow them faster? Right? It just becomes a habit.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that really intrigued me. It's like it almost became like a biology project.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
my body was the subject.
The guinea pig.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a lot of fun. I was really interested in seeing all these different things, and there was a lot of noise coming in. There's like people were saying, "Oh, you should be taking this," "Oh, you shouldn't be taking that," "You should be taking this," "You shouldn't be taking that." So there was a lot of kind of BS that you had to kind of swim through in order to find out what exactly you were looking for. And I think that's the problem with, especially it's still prevalent in the industry. You get a lot of influencers online who are going, "Oh, you should be taking this product." It's like, well, maybe you should, but maybe that's not right for every single person out there. There's a multitude. You come into the store and it's like, well, how many proteins have we got? How many pre-workouts? Like, well, if it was the same for everybody, wouldn't we just have one product in each category? Would we have one protein? Would we have one pre-workout? Everybody's looking for something different. Everybody's got different goals. Everybody has a different way that they want to do things. Even lifestyle comes into it. We both know bodybuilders who that's all that they do. But then for the majority of people, they've got work, they've got family, they've got social life, like all of those things, and they're trying to keep fit on the side. So there's a different product out there for everybody. And for me coming in, I saw that and was just trying to navigate through that minefield almost and decide which were those products that I actually really needed and what were the ones that maybe I didn't need. I talked to somebody who was a strength and conditioning coach for one of the universities, in Kitchener-Waterloo, and a very, very knowledgeable guy. Everything about strength lifting. And he said something to me about training in general, and it kind of stuck with me in terms of the supplement use as well. It's like, when you first start off, you're very new and you want to try everything out, and you do all of these accessory exercises, and you do your main core lifts, you do bench and deadlift and squat, and then you're adding in all these accessories, and you think, oh, if I work out my tibia, my squat's going to become stronger. So you add in all this stuff and you gain all this knowledge from trying all of these different things, and then it's kind of like, so you try all this stuff, you get up to the top, and then you actually realize that a lot of it you don't need.
Yeah.
Maybe if you want to increase your vertical jump or something, then, you work on your calves or something else, whatever specific goal that you might have. You want to increase your sprint, so you're working on
posterior glutes.
Exactly. Like those kind of things. So he basically said, you get to that point and then you actually kind of go down the other side and you end up eliminating a lot of the stuff, and you only end up really just doing a few key core exercises because that pertains to what your goal is. Your goal is to, like you said, increase vertical jump or whatever. So you just focus on those key exercises, or, you just want to go into the gym twice a week and stay fit. So you focus on more key exercises. You don't do all the fluff. You just focus on deadlift and squats and bench and, a couple of accessories, and that's it. You're in and out. So, and it's the same thing I noticed with supplements. You want to try everything. You want to try this ingredient with that ingredient and that ingredient with the other ingredient. And you sort of get down the other side and you say, well, actually, I can really just do the basics, and that's going to serve me really well for what I want to do for a number of different, goals. And you sort of say, okay, well, my goal is to lose weight, so I'm going to change the protein, I'm going to change my BCA, I'm going to change my pre-workout or whatever. But you mainly just stick with core things. You don't take this and that and the other and this and that, and you're taking sort of 50 different supplements, and you really only need a handful, for throughout your day, and those handful would change depending on what your goal is. So it was really interesting, and at that point, skirting back to that summer job, at the end of it, it was kind of coming to an end. I was going to be going to school and needed something part time, so I ended up getting a job working in a supplement store at that time, which I think is one of the, close to when we first met years ago. So that was a lot of fun, and I went into the interview actually, and I sort of gone before the interview. I'd sort of studied like, oh, what about this protein? What about this protein? Sort of like was trying to impress the person that was interviewing me, trying to know all of this. And he actually didn't talk about products at all, which I thought was really interesting. So he was more interested in actually how I talked or how I communicated with customers, or like how I communicated with him. That was more of interest to him. And he told me afterwards, he's like, I didn't want to know what you knew about supplements. I could tell you were into it. I just wanted to know whether you were going to be able to learn about them, whether you had that aptitude to want to learn, and how good you were at sort of communicating that. So I thought that was really interesting, and that's something that stuck with me, over time as well. I didn't want to, I've seen a number of people that have come along and it's like they've got this amazing knowledge about supplements, and they've studied everything, but they can't effectively communicate that to another person.
Those soft skills now are becoming the thing for people, right? It's like, how can they communicate? Like,
for sure.
Are they articulate? Are they well behaved? Can they work in a group environment? Like, all those things. You can teach knowledge. You can get educated, right? And you can get passionate about certain things, but like the ability to connect with someone one-on-one, like it's almost invaluable now.
Absolutely, it is, and it's becoming a commodity that is becoming more and more rare. To be completely honest,
it's unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate, in today's society. So, but as I mentioned, that interview kind of really stuck with me in that regards, because he wasn't interested in that. He just wanted to know how I talked. So over the course of the next couple of years, while I was doing the audio engineering, and I was working in the supplement store, I gained a huge amount of knowledge on obviously supplements. I tried out a bunch of stuff. It was a great environment to be able to do that in, obviously. So I bought a ton of stuff, tried everything, got to understand it, did the knowledge, seek people out and found knowledge from them, or people who've been in the industry for a long time, and they had a lot of knowledge that was just outside of what you could read online, because it was personal knowledge. It's like, okay, well, I had this particular circumstance, and this particular thing was the right thing to do in that circumstance. So just became a bit of a sponge for all of that knowledge, and I got really into it. Obviously, I was still seeing results in the gym, and I was taking all these different supplements and getting a lot of different results from them as well. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But one of the things that I enjoyed the most was when I was in the store talking to customers. Some of the customers were very, very receptive, and it was really great to see when they'd come in with a specific problem, and you knew exactly what to do. I knew exactly what to suggest. I knew exactly, hey, you know what, you maybe want to ditch this product, but this product is going to be a good one to have in its place. Or, maybe you need to go away and work on the diet a little bit, and while you're doing that, try taking this as well. I had one particular customer that I had, and this will always stay with me because it was really, a really interesting experience for me. So this customer came in, and she was a long distance runner. She loved doing her runs. It was it was a social time for her. She used to get together with another group of ladies, and they would do this run around wherever they lived. And she said, we like to do this 2-3 days a week, and it's a lot of fun. But what I'm finding is I'm going on these runs, and I'm coming home, and I'm so sore after the runs, and then the next day as well. And it's impacting the next time I want to go for the run, but I really, really enjoy doing it. I really have a great time. And she's like, do you have anything that's going to help with that soreness? I need to recover quicker. So we ended up talking, I sort of found out how long the distances were, like the distances she was talking about were, how the diet was, how her lifestyle was. She had kids, so it was a little bit difficult. So I was sort of able to build up a really good picture of her lifestyle and like what she was trying to do. So I ended up making a recommendation to her, a specific product recommendation. Like, you know, the great thing is, like, when you have those conversations, you can learn a lot about the customer and you can really sort of nail down the exact product that you need to recommend at that point. So I ended up selling her on a product. She bought it. She went home.
What was the product?
It was actually a BCA. It was just a BCA, just a more basic BCA, to be honest, like nothing crazy. You know, she wasn't training to run a marathon or anything like that. It was just, she was doing fun running at the end of the day. So it didn't need to be super complex. It didn't need to be anything that it wasn't.
Game changing.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, I need to recover better for my next workout. I don't want to take creatine. I don't want to take this. I don't want to take, you know, that wouldn't have been the right thing to do. So we just ended up selling a one product, a BCA product that was going to be easy for her to take after she worked out or after she finished her running, maybe even during. And she actually had a run that night. She was like, okay, well, I'm going to go home and, you know, I'm going on a run later tonight, so I'm going to try it. And I was actually working the next day. And she knew this because she talked and she said, oh, if I have any follow-up questions, come and see you. So, yeah, no problem. I'm in tomorrow morning. So she actually came back in the next morning. I said, hey, how's it going? Like, how did you find the product? She's like, that was probably the quickest time I've ever recovered from a run. I feel great today. Well, I could literally go and do it again right now. Thank you so much for that, for you know, working with me on that. And it gave me a huge amount of satisfaction. She didn't come in to buy anything else. She just came to say thanks. And it was really rewarding for me that I'd managed to help her solve that specific problem. You know, it wasn't, you know, she wasn't going to the Olympics or anything like that. It was just, she wanted to get more enjoyment out of the things that she enjoyed doing. And she wanted to be able to do them more often and not feel as bad, you know. Her body didn't want to feel as bad while she was doing it. So it was, like I said, I got a huge amount of satisfaction out of doing that. And that kind of, to be honest, was one of the things that led me to go down the road of going into supplements full time. So at the end of the 2 years of my schooling, I was at a bit of a crossroads. So I was like, well, I can go into that industry, but the industry was going to be, I was going to be working from the bottom, obviously. I was pretty fresh. And the hours and the time, I was probably going to have to go freelance. It was like, you never know when the next bit of work is going to come, because you don't really, unless you work for a company that sort of does it full time. But even then, you know, if you get a gig Saturday night, that's where you are. You know, you're setting up at 3 p.m. and you're not out of there until 5 a.m. on Sunday morning after you've torn everything down. So it was very unsociable hours, which I wasn't adverse to. It wasn't necessarily a problem for me in that regards. But it was like there was very much a sort of uncertainty of when the work was going to be, how much it was going to be. You know, you kind of have to go self-employed. Like my brother-in-law actually, he's a lighting engineer, and he said the same thing. Like he owns his own company. It's like, he's always having a bid for work, and it's you never know when the next bit of work's going to come. You might be dry for a month, and then you might have 3 jobs come along at once, but you don't know. So, you know, for me, I'm quite regimented in that regards. That was, I think, going to be a problem for me. And then I had an opportunity to go down into the supplement game. At that point, I was sort of being scouted for I was requesting almost to become a manager in the store that I was working for.
Let's take a break right there for a second. This will lead into a good thing.
All right.
1 second.